Hey everybody, it's Brian Asbury, and I just wanted to welcome you to today's episode. If you could, like today's episode, hit that subscribe button, and let's continue to grow the developmentally speaking brand.
Today, my guest is former WWE developmental talent, third generation star, and the queen of FCW, Miss Shaul Guerrero. Shaul, how are you?
Hello, I am good. How are you?
Good, can't complain. I appreciate you taking the time out to come on today.
Absolutely. Oh my God, that intro. I was like, oh yeah, I was the queen of FCW once upon a
So I'm going to ask you a question you've probably been asked hundreds of times. What made you want to get into professional wrestling?
time. Well, I mean, as you said in your intro, wrestling is in my blood. It's in my family, and I've mentioned this in interviews before, but when I was a kid, just like many of us, I'm sure, we you think you're the ugly duckling or you're not good enough, and then like growing up in this industry, watching my dad work with the most beautiful women in the world, and just like and seeing these like gladiators,
Hmm.
do their thing, and then watching what my dad did. um he was just so tough and so just beyond great and everything. I never thought I could be good enough to even step foot in the ring. But it wasn't until, I came into my own and I took my first bump, which was within the FCW developmental ring, that I was like, oh, I get it. Oh, I get it. I get how addicting it can be. I get just the draw and the magic of wrestling. And so that's where it all began, and then I began my journey for sure.
So, how hard was it to get, say, to go to FCW? Did you think that they would be difficult for you coming in because of who your dad was, or were they going to work with you, maybe a little work on you a little bit harder just to see if this was something that you truly wanted?
Absolutely. My dad had passed by the time I was going into FCW, and my mom was prepping me a lot. She was like, listen, you're a Guerrero, so that means they're going to be extra hard on you. They're going to be extra, like, I have a lot to live up to. There's a lot of expectations on me. And I understood that. I feel like I've always understood that ever since I was a kid. Like, you could talk to any Guerrero in our family with whatever they do, whether they're in wrestling or not. The familial expectations of a Guerrero are very high, and so going into the industry of my family, I knew it was not going to be easy at all. And when being in FCW, I did get both kinds of treatment. I got I won't say preferential treatment, but I did get, it's hard because the coaches I was there with, they also
Hmm.
changed my diapers at one point, and they grew up with me, so it was kind of a mixed bag, but they were also extra hard on me. And if I didn't do a move like dad did it, or if I didn't work the mic like mom or dad did it, then they were gonna tell me.
Hmm.
So I had a lot to live up to.
What was your initial thoughts of what developmental was? Being around it, it's not what it was on TV back then.
It's developmental isn't what God, I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what to expect because, like, WWE is this monster. It's the best of the best, and rolling up to FCW, which is this black warehouse, and I'm like, I'm either gonna die or no one's ever gonna see me again, whatever. And then, like, you know what? Back then, you really, like, you had to earn it. Like, if
Hmm.
you wanted to wrestle, you really had to want it, because that warehouse, when it was 100 degrees outside, it was 120 degrees inside. When it was 60 degrees inside, it was 40 degrees inside. We still did street team, which is when we had a show on your day off, you were going around to the town, driving 3 hours out and hammering posters all around. So like I am very honored that I was back in the day of, like, listen, you really, like, we did not have any kind of privilege. Like,
Hmm.
you were roughing it. Just like the old timers and everything like that. And even then we still had a lot of privilege, even
Hmm.
in that time. And I also got to experience developmental when it was the performance center. So I got to see both worlds. And when I went back to WWE within the Performance Center, I was like, oh, this is not. This is different. This is not what I came in with. So it's kind of crazy, the two different worlds of developmental era that I was able to be exposed to. So
How was it working with those coaches in FCW first? Is there any one that you worked with more in particular?
oh my God. Well, Norman Smiley, speaking of coaches that changed my diapers, like, Norman Smiley was, I lived in Mexico with my parents back when my dad was like a smaller name in Mexico, still making towns in Mexico. And back when we were living in a hotel and Norman Smiley was there. And so Norman, the Shakespeare of wrestling, I really loved working with Norman. He's just an infinite like well of knowledge. And then also Adam, or I'm sorry, I'm trying to Joey Mercury, huge father figure for me. And also just like God, like a just a mental wizard and just brilliant at what he does. And we also bonded a lot as far as like the mental wear and tear that wrestling has on you, spiritually, emotionally, and everything like that. And he was so close with dad too. I think that was also that's the big draw of wrestling too for me, is that wrestling is dad.
Hmm.
And dad died so young for me, and so getting to be with so many coaches that love dad and got to have dad longer than even I did,
Hmm.
was very healing for me in a lot of ways. And so yeah, Joey Mercury, Norman Smiley, and oh my God, Coach Pritchard was awesome. It was never a fucking dull moment. And of course, Dusty Rhodes, like rest in peace. Like man, that man,
Hmm.
he he really taught me all the good shit about doing a promo, and he truly changed my life and really made me believe that I could be a star um in my life. And it may have not have been in wrestling, even though I did do some pretty cool shit in wrestling.
Hmm.
But like it's really transcended into all avenues of my life in performance. So yeah, just to name a few. Love them.
Is there anything in particular that was harder for you to learn starting out down there?
I started at 19.
Hmm.
So I was just a puppy. Like I was really, and everyone at 19 is like figuring stuff out.
Hmm.
And I was living on my own for the first time. Well, not for the first time, but like I would no, yeah, I was living on my own for the first time. And it's a lot of pressure. If I could go back and help myself a
Hmm.
little bit more, I just had a lot of demons. I had a lot of demons in my younger life, and I still do now. And I think living alone in such a high pressure place,
Hmm.
and also like the view of women at the time that I was in developmental was not what it is now. We
Hmm.
were still the let me up match. We were still doing bikini contests instead of wrestling. We were still doing dance contests instead of wrestling, which was really hard to swallow
Hmm.
a lot of the time, because we're training just as much as the guys all week, bumping all week, and then when it's finally showtime, they tell us it's a bikini contest. And so it was very hard, and whatnot. And so I think with having an eating disorder, a pre-existing eating disorder, I think just fanned the flames. I
Hmm.
think being on TV and being, exposed to all of these things, and also being marketed, at the time they were marketing us as the most beautiful women in the world and the most, all of these things. And so I think it was very much a journey of self-discovery, self-love, tough love, and just learning about the good, bad, and ugly within myself, and a lot of character building
Hmm.
within myself. So I'm happy how it happened. I grew up. I think
Hmm.
WWE had me grow up in a lot of ways.
that particular time in developmental, I feel like they were trying to do. They brought in athletes, they brought in models, they brought in people who have never wrestled, and then they're bringing in people who want to wrestle, people who didn't want to wrestle. Like, how hard was it to like not only that, but then when you're training just as hard, they just want to put you in a bikini contest or do this or that. I couldn't imagine trying to like go through the waters of all that at such a young age.
Yeah, it was hard. It was hard, and then you lump in the Guerrero pressure on top of it. Um, yeah, man. Like uh, God, I think it was just a whirlwind, and I think it was hard for me at the time, and also the mentality that they were instilling upon us. And I understand, because if you're gonna get into wrestling, and I understand it more than ever now. They have
Hmm.
always said, if you're gonna get in this business, you better love it
Hmm.
because of all the bullshit, because of all the politics, because of all the hard shit like that,
Hmm.
and and granted, like, yes, the bikini contest and the imbalances, the gender imbalances that we were facing at the time were really shitty, and everything like that. But also looking at other things, like, it's just sorry, I lost my train of thought. This is a big subject, and so I'm trying to like articulate properly. Sorry, feed me it again. Sorry, I got lost.
Just trying to navigate through the waters of trying to be a professional wrestler. This is something you want to do. They're hiring models, athletes, people who don't want to wrestle, people who do. It just had to have been hard at such a young age to find who you were and what your place was.
Yeah, it was really hard, and also the competition.
Hmm.
Like, we're all fighting for one spot. We're
Hmm.
all fighting for, you never know when you're gonna get called up. You never know, and also, like, it's tough because getting called up, it's not about always like who's the best,
Hmm.
who had the best promo or anything like that. Sometimes it's like, hey, yo, we need somebody that's gonna fit into this faction that
Hmm.
has this look, and it would be hard when sometimes, somebody that's maybe been there like 3 months and barely has any training, and you have people there for years that
Hmm.
have been cutting their teeth for years, and they still haven't been called up. But it's just the nature of the beast. It's like, it's part of it is casting, and I understand casting just because, sometimes you're not the look, or sometimes you're not what they're looking for, and that's just like, c'est la vie. It's show business, baby.
Hmm.
But then there's also just other factors like we were talking about, where it's just you're not thin enough, or for me, like a mid-sized person who
Hmm.
I'm not particularly very thin, and I'm also not so like tall or super super buff or fit or anything like that, to be, you were either the model or you were the monster,
Hmm.
and those were the two roles that you could fit in. And mid-size didn't exist at the time, and so, but I'm so excited now, like,
Hmm.
the opportunities and how, like, the landscape very much has changed in so many ways, both with diversity and, with women just really like fucking getting in there
Hmm.
and just, doing what we've always known we could do, and just having way more opportunity and equality and everything like
Hmm.
that. So it's excellent.
Especially in that time too. Say when your mom was managing Eric Escobar, they're like, "Oh, we'll give it 3 weeks, gone." Like they
Hmm.
never really invested. It seemed like if it didn't work week one, we're going to pull someone else up from developmental. We'll give it a different shot.
Yeah, and it's hard because you never know the direction
Hmm.
that they want to go. You never know how much time you really have to sink your teeth into a character or
Hmm.
anything like that. And um it's hard as an artist, because you get it's hard, especially in this industry too, because sometimes you don't have control over your own art in that
Hmm.
way, and your art is your character, and then you translate it into wrestling and how that character moves, and what is their finisher, why is it their finisher,
Hmm.
like all of those things. And so, like, when they ask you to pivot, or manage a new person or do anything like that, You got to recalibrate your whole
Mm-hmm.
brain and your whole view. It's a new character. It's a new person, and so it's hard to sink your teeth into something, and then when they yank it, you're like, okay. And and you don't want to give lip because you're also a professional, and this
Mm-hmm.
is also what we sign up for. And the wrestling industry is particularly really hard. I
Mm-hmm.
think like people don't give people enough credit because also we look at the characters that have been established for years and years and years and years, characters we love.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, we've seen like character arcs and like places that they've gone, but still I'm like, who do you know out of an actor that like only plays one character
Mm-hmm.
for years? That's hard. That's hard. And it's also like hard to fulfill an artist in that
Mm-hmm.
way and stuff like that. And so you're working with the machine, you're working with your own artistry, and it's a lot. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's wrestlers are a very particular and interesting breed of performer.
I agree. When you first started, did they want you to be a Guerrero? Did they not want you to be a Guerrero? It seems like a lot of
Um,
those
uh,
like those generational talents are like they didn't know what work like your parent, but don't be your parent. Do this, do that. Yeah.
yeah, they told me pretty immediately. They're like, no, you have to earn your last name, and I was like, okay. And I was like, no pressure. Okay. So yeah, no, because when you go in, you give them a list of names that you might like, and I was not prepared. I was just like, oh, I I guess I assumed I would be Guerrero because everyone always told me I would be Guerrero, but like they were like, no, you got to earn it, and I understand that. I truly do. Just I think just from the Guerrero mentality that
Mm-hmm.
I grew up with and everything. So that's why I ended up being Raquel Diaz for a time.
Th- So did they have any initial plans for you, or were you able to like pitch stuff to them to navigate through developmental there, or was it just a week by week, like let's see what works and what doesn't work?
I was pretty much thrown in just like anybody else. Like, initially when you go into training, like they start you at the very bottom where you're just like you're bumping, you're getting basics done. And usually for all the female talent, they never did this with the male talent, which I think is interesting. But like all female talent is required to learn how to announce. And I remember the girls would be like, now don't be good at announcing because then you'll get stuck in announcing
Hmm.
and then you won't wrestle. And I was like, oh my God, oh no. And stuff like that. But I actually really loved announcing. I love it all. I love all aspects of it. But like but so you do that simultaneously while you're learning the basics of wrestling and you're learning all of the things. You're also learning how to announce, and that's usually your role when you are making towns because you're on the same schedule as everybody else, whether you're on the card or not. You're traveling to towns, you're putting up the ring, you're setting up chairs, you're paying your dues.
Hmm.
And at least back in FCW days, I don't think they do so much of that anymore. But yeah, and I actually loved it. I think, and I learned so many skills that now I use and make money with now. And
Hmm.
so I'm really happy I got to learn. But I was about to say, I'm like, I think they should open that skill up to anybody that wants to
Hmm.
learn. And I think because announcing and learning how to host is an excellent gateway to a lot of things, and also commentary
Hmm.
too. I know like they didn't. I hope and I think they're better at it now of opening up all aspects, especially when you're injured.
Hmm.
I'm like, hey, this is the perfect opportunity to learn how to maybe go into the commentary room, go do this, go do that,
Hmm.
like learn all aspects of the company.
Is there any particular moments during your time in FCW that stand out more than others?
Yes. Um,
Hmm.
so I have a couple of very cherished moments. Um, Tom Pritchard was a really fun coach because he was just I just have so many quotes of him in my head, and he was just like this gruff, grouch, secretly teddy bear, but like you knew when Tom was in the building because you'd be like, what the fuck, like you just walk in immediately pissed at something. And I remember one time he just came, he barged in the building, and like he said, I fucking hate civilians, and then went in his office, and I was just like, that's iconic, just iconic. And like I don't know, I'm like, I love my job. Like, what other office job would your coach just like come in and just like yelp vanities and just go in his office and you continue on your way? You know, there was also, so we would have practice matches, and I remember this, oh God, this was like, it gave me so much anxiety, Brian. It gave me so, like, I remember because you didn't know who you were wrestling. They would give you a stipulation, and it's all improv. It's all improv. It's like, this is where your training comes into, and everyone's in the room. Like, all the classes are in the room. Everyone is surrounding the ring. And then literally the coach goes, you do a match, 15 minutes. This is the stipulation. Go. And it's like,
No.
and like, and everyone's watching. Your coaches are watching. And of course, you're doing it in the room with all the cameras where the office, Big Brother's watching. So, you know, Hunter and, you know, everyone. So you're just like, it's fine. Not a practice match, but it's a practice match. I got put with Big E. And I remember I look over to Joey Mercury after he was like, Raquel, Big E, match. And then you just see Joey Mercury's eyes go. And I was like, and so I'm like, okay, it's David versus Goliath. Okay, here we go. And, you know, and so I'm doing the thing where it's just like, yeah, we're going to play on size. We're going to play on size. At the time, and pardon me, I haven't watched wrestling in a minute. I haven't watched Big E in a minute, but back then, I know he would do the thing where he bum rushes you, and he like gives a big, and like he uses all of his body and launches you. And I'm 5'3" at the time, like maybe 120 pounds. And he does this move on me, like full fucking speed. And I yeet, like all the way across the ring. Like I even stumble out of the ring, and like I don't even know all of the match, but I just remember everyone like literally did a like what a pose. And like, and it would, you know what though, and even though it felt very scary, it felt like pillows. It was sweaty pillows, and Big E is the sweetest, best man I know, and so I trusted him like intensely. I was just like, you could throw me around, you could do whatever you want, E. Like I trust you. And then I felt bad because the guys also felt, I think, a little pressure wrestling me because they were like, don't break Guerrero, don't break Guerrero, because they'll hear about it. So it was a fun time. I just remember getting to wrestle Biggie Langston at the time. God, that was his name at the time, Biggie Langston. And no, but like, I mean, I got to interact with so many beautiful people, some of whom are gone now, which is wild. And like Bray, and you know, like we just got to make really beautiful friends there, lifelong friends. And anytime I see somebody that I trained with at FCW, we're like, we were in the trenches together, and that is a bond that you never let go of. So
Before the NXT days, did they have any plans for you to like try to get you on the main roster, or to do what they wanted to do with you?
So, like, as far as main roster goes, I don't know. I know I was part of the FCW merging into NXT era, and they wanted to make me this Lady Gaga situation. Like you kind of saw the Raquel Diaz on season 1 of NXT, like the exfoliation of ugliness tour kind of thing, where I was wearing kind of crazy gear, and I was kind of experimenting that on my own because like it was really hard. I think I was getting a lot of feedback from the office. I wasn't feminine enough, aka I wasn't losing enough weight, and also I wasn't Latina enough for what they wanted. And so I didn't know what to do with that. That was really hard for me, and so I think I kind of rebelled against that and started doing whatever the fuck I wanted. And so I was just like, And my promo was always very good. I remember like my wrestling ability. I know I'm no Eddie Guerrero, and that is okay because nobody's Eddie Guerrero. But I did have a knack for the mic, and Dusty trusted me and let me run with what I wanted usually because I would do my homework. I would go all out and I would try different things until I figured out what I wanted. And so I was going down this heel venture and playing with like this crazy hair and blah blah blah. And so eventually they were just kind of like, okay, you're gonna be this Lady Gaga bitch, and like you're gonna run this tour and you're gonna put lipstick on people's faces after you win and be like loser. And I was just like, fuck yeah, let's go. I love being a mean girl. Let's go. That's my alter ego I never got to be when I was a kid because I'm actually very introverted and shy. And so I was like, cool. That was their plan. And I know I was like right before I went into rehab, I was supposed to wrestle Tamina on NXT, and I was so excited. It was supposed to be this big thing, and they were working with me to hopefully maybe go on to the main roster for those things. But I think unfortunately because my eating disorder got so unruly, I did have to take a break, and that really took any momentum away from my main roster debut.
Do you think that with the added pressure of NXT not being FCW, but now that it's NXT, there really is all eyes that played a big effect into what was going on behind closed doors for you?
Totally.
Yeah.
And it was so great though. Like, I mean, like in so many ways. Like, I mean, God, we were finally like, and we don't get me wrong, like Bright House Networks, was a great place to grow and work. But man, when they were getting this NXT thing going, wow. Wow, 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 wow. Like it was just another world. It was a taste of the main roster life, and we were just like we were seeing stars. It was really a wonderful thing, and what they have done now, it's just out of this world. But yes, it was definitely. And when you start getting looked at, and when you even have a storyline, you're like, oh God, I better get my shit together. I better do more. And I knew I already had feedback of not being feminine enough, or I'm not showing enough skin, and I need to lose more weight, and I need to like all of these things. I need to, and I was also dealing with my demons of my eating disorder. And at the time, Rob McIntyre was our coach, our strength and fitness coach. Love him. Awesome coach. But he came up to me along with Joey Mercury and was just like, kid, you need help. Like this is not good. I mean, I was dropping people. In my finisher because I was so weak because I wasn't eating, and it was just like mix eating, like a mixture of like not eating but also not losing weight. They were like, what's going on? So yeah, I think a lot of the pressure, I definitely crumbled, and I didn't have the tools to be able to handle all of that along with maybe a main roster situation.
After rehab, did you return to developmental?
I was trying my hardest at the time, and also with, I think, the values that they held with what they wanted from somebody who's female presenting in the company. They were not aligned. Those values with my recovery were not aligned, and I needed a longer break. So I took a year off, and I thought I couldn't go back. I actually enrolled and got into a dance program at the University of Houston. I was like, okay, I'm gonna try and do all of those things, but the spotlight always calls me. If you can ask anyone, I will always drop everything in order to perform. And I ended up calling uh, at the time, John Laurinaitis. I ended up calling him and was just like, is there any way I could try this again? And he was like, absolutely. So I packed my bags and I drove from Houston to Florida, and we tried it again. And at that time, I was at the WWE Performance Center, and I was like, "This is nice. This is different." But and even though that next time still didn't work out, like as far as like neck injuries, still, you know, like it just wasn't going like the way I wanted it to go, and it wasn't working out. And but I happened to meet my husband at the time, and it all worked out in a different way. So yeah,
Well, I'm glad that that happened. Matt's a really good guy.
me too.
how how was Matt supported you through all this?
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
like Matt and I knew each other back when I was a queen of FCW and I was doing all of that. But I was dating somebody else at the time.
hmm
So me and him were just, you know, passing ships in the night at the time. But when I came back to Developmental, we actually lived in the same apartment complex, and he was very helpful. And he was just like, "Hey, if you need anything, need a cup of sugar, right down here." And my cup of sugar one day was, "Hey, listen," and we had been texting, you know, because we were buddies and maybe kind of flirting. I don't know. We're both huge introverts, and both of us didn't know that each other was flirting with one another. So, but my cup of sugar was when I was like, I ran out of True Blood. Back when we bought the DVDs,
hmm
you know, like the whole thick ass DVD sets, and I was like, oh no, I ran out of. I finished season 3 and I need season 4. I don't know what to do. And he's like, I have season 4. And I was like, oh, you have season 4? And so we ended up not watching season 4 and talking all night, and we were inseparable ever since. So
I remember going many a times with Matt to like Best Buy or DVDs, just movies. We went and watched, oh, what was the Batman movie at the time back then?
was it Dark
Uh,
Knight? The Dark Knight?
I think so.
He
It was
loves those.
it was me, him, Enzo, and Luchasaurus. I was like, I don't belong here.
Oh my god! What a party! What a party! And that also checks when you were like, oh, y'all went to Best Buy. Yeah, that checks. He still goes to Best Buy.
So how's life been after WWE?
Really good. Really good. I never thought, I think I struggled for a long time feeling um like a failure and feeling like I failed my family and like a disappointment, and I think there's still feelings of that. I know there are certain family members that are not happy in my chosen career now, but I am very, very happy in my career. I'm a professional burlesque artist now, and I've been able to tour the world, and I love what I do. I have the pageantry of wrestling without the bumping,
hmm
and yeah, and I'm also a fire artist, and actually my moniker right before I go on stage is Latina Heat, so it's still a nod to my dad. And I'm actually working on a burlesque act right now that's going to be in a way a tribute to him. Um, it's gonna have like his gear and
hmm
everything like that, and so I'm working on all kinds of things. But I really love my job. I'm very happy and get to use all kinds of fabulous skills that I learned. I'm also a professional host for burlesque shows and all kinds of other things, and so I'm really happy with what I do now.
What drew you to that? That's got to be just as nerve-wracking as wrestling.
It's a different kind of nerve wracking. And actually, what brought me to burlesque was the fact that I needed to accept my body
hmm
as is. And I was like, and I've always been told burlesque should be something I try because I've always been a dancer. I've always been a dancer and a singer. I had an agent when I was around 18, 19 that said, you should try this. And at the time, I didn't. I don't know. I was everywhere because you're 18 and 19 and you're just like, whatever, I'm going to go where the wind takes me. But I did try it when I was younger, but it wasn't real burlesque. It wasn't like what we do in Chicago.
hmm
And, but on my break from WWE, I actually, oh no, I'm sorry. Pardon me. It was after I got let go. I was living in Florida and I was doing a couple of shows as a principal dancer and as a stunt woman, And I had a friend that was like, "You should try burlesque. I have a feeling you're gonna be really good at it." And I was like, she was like, "Just do it." And she was like, "I'll give you a slot in my show. Bring me something. Tell me your concept, and consider it your tryout." And I was like, "Okay." And so I came up with this silly ass Austin Powers like thing where I turned from Austin Powers like complete with like I had a bodysuit with like body hair everywhere and like the glasses, the socks, like his little like speedo. Like I had the whole thing and I turned into a fembot on stage. And funny enough, actually one of the producers that I had in WWE that funny enough told me I wasn't feminine enough was in the audience that night for and it was kind of wild but I fell in love with it. I've never had a pop from a crowd like that. I've never had so much love and acceptance um just for being me. And it had no ties to my family. And I think, and don't get me wrong, I have so much pride with my family. I'm so proud for you, Guerrero, but being in that shadow
hmm
constantly was really hard to know my worth. And it's really hard, even still, for me to know my worth. And burlesque is for me completely. And I'm accepted because of what I do and how good I am. And it doesn't have to do with my family. And I think it's very healing for me. So,
Good. That's
but yeah, that's how
something
we got
that you
into it.
do. That's something you deserve to have.
Thanks. Appreciate that.
Is the chapter for wrestling closed?
Darling, it's never closed. You know how it goes.
hmm
People retire at least 8 times. But however, like when it comes to like matches and stuff like that, like it's gotta be the right person, the right just because I got a jacked up neck. That was what really took me out.
hmm
My second time in WWE when that was I think the big catalyst of why I got let go. I told them I was like, listen, this pain is so bad and I can't I it was to the point where I would pray to God I wouldn't sneeze because if I sneezed my neck would go out. And it was so bad like Matt was like, "Honey," he was like, "Are you going to be able to have kids one day? Are you going to be able to like it was to the point where my doctors were like and I was like 9 concussions deep at that point and there was just a lot of factors and when I told them, I was like, I don't think I can be a wrestler for you all, but I would love to be an announcer, a commentator, a blah blah blah. Um, at the time, they told me it wasn't going to be a problem. I had a lot to offer in other ways, but that week I got let go. So I think as a wrestler,
hmm
it was just that was the only thing they wanted from me, and that's business,
hmm
you know. But I think if I could ever go back to wrestling, I would love to be in an announcer role to where I don't have to compromise my body
hmm
or God to be on a mic to be a manager. That's the ultimate dream because I love a good promo and I love stirring shit. And I love an occasional bump. Don't get me wrong, I still every time I watch wrestling there's still a part of me that's like because it's fun. Wrestling is so fun, and wrestling is so magical. And I like, it's hard. It's a hard.
hmm
It's, yeah.
Where can people reach out to you at?
You can find me at Shaw Guerrero on Instagram. Also, my burlesque name is Miss Nixon, Nixon with a Y. But my Instagram is linked to my burlesque account, so please follow me there. And my website is dropping in next week. So next week my website is dropping, and you guys can catch me all of my shows. I perform at least 8 to 15 times a month, so you guys can catch me all around the world. So please catch me. I'll be in Nashville the first week of July for Burlesque Brawl, where I'm actually going to be doing a form of wrestling. I'll leave that for y'all to figure out. A form of wrestling, and then also one of my fire burlesque numbers that is not to miss. I'll be doing in Nashville. So if you're in Nashville, hit me up.
If you had any advice to give to anybody getting into professional wrestling, what would it be?
Mm. if you're gonna do it, make sure you love it.
Mm-hmm.
For real. Like, it's, and I feel like I understand that now being a burlesque performer. Maybe, like, and don't get me wrong, I love wrestling, but not in the same way.
Mm-hmm.
I think you just have to find something that you really, really, really love, because there's gonna be a lot of bullshit. There's gonna be a lot of pain, physical, emotional. Um, and to not lose sight, I think when we all have big dreams, like these, of fame and being in the lights and being, and performing our art, sometimes we let um our own belief systems and our own values go to the wayside in order to make those things happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say try not to lose sight of that. Try not to push those things aside, because that's how you lose yourself. I lost myself in a lot of ways, and you are worthy and you are enough right now. And that doesn't mean to stop working on your craft. You're always going to be working on your craft. Always keep going. Keep fucking pushing if this is what you want to do. But also, don't forget to do the inner work and try and keep that intact, because that's just as important.
I agree. Shaul, I just want to say thank you for coming on today. Thank you for what you've done for professional wrestling and what you're doing today.
Thank you so much, Brian, for having me on. You are lovely, my dear.
Thank you. I'm
Thank
trying to make a career
you.
here.
Appreciate you, and thanks for having me.
And if there's ever anything that I can do, please feel free to reach out.
Keep doing you, my man. Keep doing this. This is awesome.
Thank you.